Holy fucking shit, this chapter was insane. There is literally so much that I need to break down within this chapter. Yuki's ability reveal, Kenjaku is scared of Yuki, Kenjaku's domain expansion, then we have Tengen jumping in at the last panels to help Yuki with some sort of mastermind plan. There is a lot to cover within this chapter, and honestly, Gege's hands must be literally on fire right now because holy fuck, this chapter went hard as fuck, bro. And I just said fuck a ridiculous amount of times. But before we get into the video, I just want to make sure that you are all liking, commenting, and subscribe on the channel if you do like the content that you see, and it will help you get more juicy manga content into your sub feeds. But without further ado, let's get into the video. The Choso fans rejoice, your boy is living for another day here. Yuki enters the fight and tells Choso, nice fight, leave the rest to me. She then somehow manipulates Tengen's barrier and transports Choso away so he can go and have himself a nice little snooze after a scrap with Kenjaku. Yuki then proceeds to tell Kenjaku that her type is a hard-working, muddy guy. And if this sounds familiar, it's because you'll have heard this similar sort of line from our favourite pervy gorilla, Todo, who asks Megami and Yuji what their type is in women. And if you remember, Todo did train under Yuki, which makes sense as to why Todo is such an absolute powerhouse when it comes to throwing hands. But Yuki then goes on to say to Kenjaku how he's different, and she'll have to beat him up to make him the same as her type. And we're gonna see in a moment, she proceeds to do just that. Yuki's a fucking monster. Kenjaku thinks to himself about when Yuki was given the title Special Grade designation, and he mentions how the administration should have had details on her ability. However, when he looked, he couldn't find anything about it. And crazy conspiracy theory time here, but I think this is something to do with Yuki herself. You see, Yuki is all about splitting away from cursed energy altogether. She said this already in the chapters, and we know this. So I could see a world where Yuki has gone to this library of information on special grades or just curses in general, and then has removed the information about her own technique. It seems fitting for a character that wants to split away from cursed energy that would do this entire thing to get rid of information regarding her technique. That's my crazy little conspiracy theory here. But then we see Kenjaku telling Yuki to keep her distance, and then he summons the special grade curse that we saw him use at the White House, the dispatch of the soldiers that Gary had sent for him. And the way the special grade appears, it just sort of crawls out of thin air, and it reminds me of the Gargantas from Bleach, that the way the Urankers arrive to the battle. I have to say, like, it looks really phenomenally cool. I love stuff like that, the way it just sort of rips out of reality. But then Kenjaku goes to say how this case is a special grade from an Asian god. Now, this is the second time in the past few chapters that we've had a mention of god. Angel also mentioned this a while back, and I think Gege is doing this intentionally. If this world exists with curses and spirits, then it only makes sense to me that they must have come from somewhere, right? So if by chance they come from hell, there must be a god, right? And this is the second time that we've done this, and Kenjaku is definitely old enough and wise enough to have most likely run into a god at some point, right? But then he goes on to say how this cursed spirit, and I quote, can remove any obstacles. A special grade that can entangle a concept within its target's technique. From how I understand this, Kenjaku is basically saying as long as he can see a way to remove the obstacle, the cursed spirit can do it. I mean, we've seen stuff like this before with Takaba. Takaba can basically create anything into reality that he finds funny. So it's within reason that this special grade could also do something like this. Scary stuff. But not that scary after we see Yuki rolling up her curse technique into a ball after catching some footy fever and calling it by its name, Garuda. She then proceeds to blue lock the out of this thing and one-shot Kenjaku's cursed spirit with a kick so powerful that Kenjaku is sat there wondering what the fuck he's got himself into. Like, seriously, look at this man's face and tell me that that's a dude who wants to be in this fight right now. Yuki closes the distance and asks if Kenjaku is scared to close the distance because he doesn't know her technique. And then she reveals that her technique is actually mass. Right before sending this man Kenjaku on a one-way EasyJet flight to get land. Like, Yuki punches this man so fucking hard, he flies through the barrier and into the Shadow Realm. We see him looking up at his arm that are up. He realizes what she means when she says mass. Yuki's technique can add such overwhelming mass to the point that its concept cannot be contained semantically or pragmatically. She then explains how she can imbue virtual mass into either herself or her cursed spirit, which we then learn is actually a cursed tool. And the technique is called Bombardier, as in Bombardier get fucked. This chapter is fucking wild. So for all of you guys doubting whether Yuki actually fits special grade criteria, that little floating case tool there is enough to nuke a country should she add enough mass to it. She could literally launch that thing at a city and it's bye-bye city. Come on now, that's enough to be special grade right there. Kenjaku then goes on to note that she didn't also get slowed by adding that much mass to herself, meaning her chaos technique literally defies concepts and laws of physics, like pretty much anything else in the series right now. But he also states that none of his high-grade case spirits he has left after Shibuya are usable against her, and then we see Kenjaku beginning to doubt whether he alone is enough to hunt this beast of a woman, Yuki. Nowhere in any of these chapters coming up did I ever think I was going to see Kenjaku, the main villain of the series, literally fearing for his fucking life. But this dude is in shambles right now, and I'm all for it. Yuki then starts to deduce Kenjaku's technique, and we get some more clarification on just how many techniques he actually has. Yuki deduces that the technique he used against Choso was gravity to defend himself. So right now in total he has about 3 techniques that we know of. He has curse manipulation, he has gravity, and then he has the body hopping technique, which he's used to survive for all these years. The curse manipulation Uzumaki allows him to extract curse techniques, but they only get to be used once? I think I'm reading that correctly, I hope I am. But he can't be using idle transfiguration, which has already been revealed to her. We see her figuring out that Kenjaku may have absorbed more techniques via Uzumaki, but it's unlikely because he doesn't have an external storage for techniques like Yuta does. Which is also something I'm not sure we knew about Rika, who apparently stores Akatsu's techniques for him, and that's how he copies them. Very, very interesting bit of lore behind Yuta right there. I kind of enjoy that one. Yuta's obviously my favourite, as you can tell by the PFP, and I'm a bit biased towards Yuta. But then we get this panel of both Yuki and Kenjaku saying how much of a pain it is for them to be fighting each other, after him saying that Yuki may have an extension technique as her trump card. But right now we are in this little stalemate of trying to figure out their true abilities and what they can both do. But Yuki goes back to the plan that her and Tengen have made against Kenjaku to try and force him to use his domain, and in the after effects of him using it, where his techniques are going to be harder to use for him, she'll still have Garuda to win the fight, even if she is in the same state as Kenjaku after that. But I also find this very interesting. I wonder if Garuda can work the same way Rika does, where it can act independently from Yuki and fight on its own, which, if that is the case, that makes Yuki an entirely separate beast. Imagine Yuki using her mass technique to try and fight you, and then you have to worry about this weird little snake creature also launching at you at extreme speeds with incredible mass behind it. It's kind of a difficult fight to take. But this is where we see Kenjaku interrupting Yuki's thoughts here by forming a hand signal and saying, no, our chaos techniques aren't suited for fighting each other, but you still haven't expanded your domain, which is practically confessing to me that in a battle of domains, you're not confident in your ability to win. And that is where we see Kenjaku using his domain expansion, all enveloping Garba Hadhatu, which this massive, grotesque looking tree seemingly filled with chaos spirits just appears out of the floor. And I also want to point out that this domain seems very, very similar to Sukuna's in the fact that it doesn't create its own void, it doesn't create its own space where the user and the opponent is trapped inside, but rather it's more akin to an artist just painting it on a canvas and he's bringing it into the real world where it's interactable with everyone else. But after seeing this, we see Yuki then shout for Tengen, who wonders if she's going to make it in time. We also see her making a hand seal of some sort, for some sort of technique, and if I had to take a wild guess here, I would assume that it's a technique that is going to try and seal Kenjaku in his weakened form from the domain, as obviously we know that whenever someone uses a domain, their normal techniques then become weaker, or it becomes harder for them to use cursed energy, unless you're an absolute unit like Gojo who can use that shit multiple times in a day. But that's my guess, and I guess we'll have to wait around till the next week to try and find out. But that is all from me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's a bit of a different one. If you did enjoy it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as it really does help out the channel. And if you want to support me even further, consider becoming a member to the channel, because again, that really does help out. And I also just wanted to say thank you for all the well wishes on the whole copy strike stuff that I'm dealing with right now. I'm still not out of the woods yet, but I have spoken to some other YouTubers who've dealt with similar situations, And they've all assured me that I will be fine within the next 10 days, because hopefully Shueisha isn't just going to take me to court randomly. So fingers crossed, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Much love, big kisses, and I'll catch you all guys soon. Bye-bye.